Hello everyone, welcome to Jannelle. I'm your host Jannelle. So these days people are celebrating being together with family, being safe, being healthy, being alive. And there is, despite everything that's going on around us, there are still a lot of reasons to celebrate. Here on the show, we are marking a milestone, very special milestone this month, because 3 years ago on this month, we launched Jannelle. And so, yes, we are celebrating our third anniversary. In fact, our first and second anniversaries, we didn't really celebrate much, but this year we thought it best to give reasons, to give you a chance to celebrate. So please join us. This time though, the celebration is not going to be about parties or about merrymaking. I think with a lot of the recent events that's gone on, and thinking about where we are going as a nation, as a community, we have put together this virtual event called Sojourn, which is a travel. We can't really travel much these days anymore, but we can sojourn and take a journey on social issues, getting to know and understanding them better, journeying with our family and sharing tips on how we can stay together, stay healthy, thrive and survive during this time. And also some tips on how to color our world when it seems dark and to keep moving when everything is at a standstill. So please join us. This is going to be a Facebook event, and I would appreciate it if you could tell your friends and family about us as well, because this will be available online, www.facebook.com/Jannelle, and this is happening on July 25. That's all over the world. Information on the screen. We've been very busy preparing for that, but of course we're not neglecting our commitment to you. Right about now, we are giving you our interview with a Filipino American activist up in Northern California who has been active in the issues surrounding the LGBTQIA plus community. She is known as Tita Aida, and she has been so bold in speaking up for the marginalized, especially for this community, and we thought it best to catch up with her as we wrapped up Pride Month last month. Here she is, so bold.
We don't want to just become the others all the time. We want to make sure that our identities are given emphasis and our issues are being heard and addressed.
Tita Aida, hello and welcome to Jannelle.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for all that you do for the community, not just for the LGBTQIA plus community, but also for the Filipino community, representing us there in your work for social equality and social justice.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that. You will find family in your own, in your own community. So yeah, thanks.
Because I think that education is still needed in our community when it comes to this issue. I guess we first start with the acronym, because when I was actively doing shows, it was just LGBTQ. And now there's LGBTQIA plus.
This acronym did not really happen just overnight. Generations that came and kind of like grew and became aware of who they are, who they really would like to be, So just to drill it down. So L is for lesbian, G is for gay, B is for bisexual, T is for transgender, Q is for queer, I is intersex, and A could be a variety of things. It could, primarily, it's mostly agender or asexual. Sometimes it could be an ally also, Allyship is very important in these communities. And the plus is, it's like, what is there to come? Generations that will be emerging that may define other things of who they are and how they want to identify. So we try to keep that plus there just to be more inclusive.
Right. So, and some of the definitions, do they overlap? Because say, for example, queer, who does that define?
In the old days, probably like in the 50s and the 60s, if we look back, queer was a word that was a derogatory word. that pertain to folks who usually would be the who would go be outside of the binary norm, and these are gays, the lesbians, and queer really was used to really bring communities down, at that time. But evolution happened, and now queer, I believe, would be folks who are still in that stage where they do not conform or they do not identify any being lesbian or being gay. Yeah, they don't want to be labeled a certain way. It's just being more fluid and be more free in terms of like expression of themselves, So,
Right.
and asexual is very different. Asexual is like they really don't identify to any male or female
Sexual
or gay.
orientation.
Yes.
What about intersex?
Intersex is a medical condition. Sometimes there would be like in the genitalia, there would only be, the male genitalia, but there's no like testicles or there's no, so it's ambiguous. They can't tell sometimes. And a lot of these babies, when they're born, the doctors usually who examines them would make decisions immediately for
Would
them.
assign the gender.
Yeah, but
Right.
identifying a gender, and yet in the most recent findings is that you really don't want to do that, because you want to let the baby grow and develop to who they are and how they really feel inside.
So
Absolutely.
it speaks to us about how far this movement have come. So
Yes.
when you think about pride then and pride now, what are the differences that are glaring?
Pride started out as a protest where a group of folks, mostly lesbians, gays, and the bisexuals at that time, this was in the 70s, were, there were laws that were preventing them to progress as a community. They were put in jail if they were caught, cross-dressing and all this stuff. So Pride before was really more of a statement in terms of like, this is who we are, this is what we need in order to be productive and to thrive. And of course, when you have a movement like that, the goal is to win. The goal is to attain what you want, you need for yourself, for your community to succeed. These pride celebrations are considered like a nonprofit. In order to have a nonprofit, you have to have a cause, so it's a cause to preserve LGBTQIA, history, and also taking into account that we are making history here. Now, I think, given that we have more wins and we have more to work with, it's like being handed in a silver platter to the new generation, so it becomes a little easier to look at it more as a celebration now. However, there are gatekeepers that we want to make sure that are in place. Like me, I've been on the board of Pride, as a Pride here in San Francisco for over 12 years now. And what my contribution is to make sure that the Asian and Pacific Islander LGBTQIA folks are not forgotten in this equation. We are a great big community in terms of numbers, but there are bigger numbers when it comes to African Americans, to the Latinos, so we don't want to just become the others all the time. We want to make sure that our identities are emphasized, given emphasis, and our issues are being heard and addressed.
Thank you for sharing your time with us here on So Jannelle. We have just finished our conversation with Tita Aida from Northern California, where she started to talk to us about the plight of our brothers and sisters who are members of the LGBTQ plus or LGBTQIA plus community. Here is the rest of our conversation.
Each and every person who comes out has its own story and journey. People understand what it means to come out. I think people understand the depth of it, how it would impact their lives in the long run.
Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I mean, I know that your story is not that unique in terms of a lot of people moving out from the Philippines to
Mhm.
find themselves here in the States or in San Francisco, perhaps. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Back home in the Philippines, I was heavily involved with the local showbiz crowd over there. When I was young, I went to Maryknoll College
Yes,
when
that's where I went.
oh, good. This is when they started accepting well, at the time, males in the college. It was I was in the batch where it was the last time it was going to be called Maryknoll before it
Oh
turned
my
into
gosh, wait,
Mariel College.
are we batchmates?
Possibly, but I didn't graduate from Maryknoll, so
Oh, okay,
um,
okay. We're the
I
same
was
batch. Yeah, because
yeah.
that's
So
the year I
very
went in.
likely,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
when they changed it to Miriam.
Miriam,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
That's when
Go
I started to decided to move. I said, I took up mass communication there, and
ahead. We could have been classmates, I think. Anyway, go ahead.
possibly, I
Yes,
mean, I get hit up a lot on Facebook and say, hey, weren't you so and so and everything? It's like, yeah, that was me. Oh, you were the one who did this during the initiation and everything. Yes, that was me. I mean, everybody was just like, and when I went back home 2 years ago, I hooked up with a few of them. I met some of them, and they were like, wow, wow, what how things changed. I went to UST after that though, and then I decided to really like it was really not working for me, and my involvement in the showbiz community was the one who drove me up here. I was very close friends with the Diamond Star, Maricel Soriano. We were all hanging out together at that time, and she had a show here in LA, and she needed somebody to kind of like help her out because among all her friends, I was the only one who had a visa, and was just like, can you help me out? And I need someone who can, who can always keep an eye on my things and all this stuff. So I said, sure, why not? And my mom grew fondly of her, so went here and all this stuff. And for some reason, everything fell into place. It was an opportunity for me to really be who I wanted to be. I found the transgender community here. Back home, it wasn't really talked about. I mean, like when you're assigned male at birth and you come up as effeminate, you're gay. If you were assigned female at birth and you grew up as a butch dyke, you're a lesbian. There was nothing in between. So when I got here, I kind of like did my research and I said, I think this is where I like to be. So in '89 made that move. She and I, when she did her show, I said, I'm gonna stay behind, I'm okay, don't worry about me. And she was always saying like, just don't make sure I don't wanna be in the cover of the magazines and saying like, oh, Maricel's friend went to the United States and never came back and everything and all this stuff. So I took care of business. Luckily things fell in place. People sponsored me, and I just the journey started for me, and I got involved immediately in the HIV/AIDS field. I was with the Filipino Task Force on AIDS as a volunteer. This was a small nonprofit organization that was funded by the federal government to provide HIV prevention and care for Filipinos living with HIV or at high risk for HIV. And at that time, it was really very difficult to educate. I mean, Filipinos were ranking the highest at that time, 89, 90, the 90s, ranking the highest that are most impacted of being with HIV. And I think it has something to do with our attitude of like bahala na, Lord will take care of us, things like that. And there wasn't that much hope. I mean, people were dropping like flies, in terms of like their life, their lives here in the States, So, but we kind of like brainstormed and said, what can we do to to do effective education around HIV prevention in the Filipino gay community? So I told them that, we should try to, there's this character that they do on Penthouse Live called Donya Budin, and she would do a monologue and talk about certain things. It came out very funny, but I think it caught a lot of attention because these were things that you don't usually hear from in an everyday conversation. She talked about being nouveau rich and how she is so well loved, and yet look at her. She's a plus size woman. She's a curvy woman, and she carries herself very well. So maybe we can do something like that, and maybe kind of like combine it with like a Dear Abby personality. Someone who gives advice and all this stuff. And that's when how Tita Aida came about. So Tita is how, as you know, we call our
Yes,
aunties in the
auntie.
Philippines. Yeah. And at that time, whenever someone would be trying to portraying to somebody who's living with HIV or suspected to have HIV, they call them Tita Aida, you know. Tita Aida, they do that, something like that. For me, leadership for me is not to just lead, but also to confront issues, to make sure that we are talking about it. We are putting it on the table and making sure that we try to look at it from all angle and how to come up with solutions. So kind of like they found it very funny, like Tita Aida, and then so we kind of like wrote scripts. I did monologues in bars and clubs here and everything. And so that's how it evolved, actually. I even had a column that was in a magazine, in an Australian magazine called OG. It stands for Oriental Guys. And it's a magazine um, that served men who likes Asian men, So, and I had that advice column there. And at the time, because people were really like, well, I don't want to use a condom when I'm doing oral sex, or I don't want to use this. I'm such a nymphomaniac. I mean, I gave advice to everybody pretty much. So, and that's how it got started. And I think I stayed. I tried to kind of like do other things also. I had a very promising career, actually, future in being a buyer for one of the major retail stores here in the Bay Area. But when I volunteered not only for Filipino Task Force and AIDS, but also for San Francisco AIDS Foundation, I saw that there was the API community did not have a voice. They really did not have a voice. A lot you see on the ads were mostly Caucasian men. They put, of course, African American, Latinos, but the APIs did not have a voice at all. You could not see their faces in prevention messages. You do not see them. It wasn't in our own languages and all those stuff. So that's when I decided I'm gonna stick to
You
this
found
field.
your calling.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the calling and all that stuff. And since then, it kind of like I got heavily involved really in identifying how to create prevention programs for API MSMs. MSM is now what we call is a term that the Center for Disease Control use now for gay bisexual men, because not everybody wants to be labeled as gay or bisexual. So
Okay.
they're just men who have sex with men, basically.
Okay. MSM.
MSM, yeah.
MSM.
So
Right.
yeah. So and
Okay.
at that time, it was like for me, I was just like, I think I got so deep into it where I could just to make a difference in someone's life to realize that the risk that they take whenever they engage into something unsafe, and at the time unsafe, and might really put them into shorten their lives is for me is a big success already, when they realize those things. So I became a household name here in the Bay Area. People were like, where they were always saying like, oh, you should listen to Tita Aida because Tita Aida knows, it became I became the Auntie of Aunties for
Right.
everybody here.
Right.
So,
Right.
and through that, given my background back in the Philippines in show business, it was really like I knew how to carry it. I knew how to carry a script. I knew how to put a script together. I knew how to deliver the script and all stuff. So I became kind of like popular, and then it came to the point where they asked me to. MC shows, to do this, to do fundraisers and everything. And it was really, I mean, if you ask me, would you do it all over again? I would definitely do it all over again because it made me who I am right now, pretty much, you know.
And
Go
and
ahead.
it also gave you a voice, like a platform that people will listen.
Yeah, something like that. However, I was never really big on recognition, you know. I think for me, doing the work was rewarding enough.
If there are stigmas out there about
Hmm.
this community that you
Hmm.
want to dispel, maybe top two, top three stigmas, what can
Hmm.
you think of?
Our religion, being Catholic, plays a big role. I know we have some progressive groups out there, also Catholic groups that are, you know, hey, this is
Advocating.
who they are. You know, they let's see. You know, they're not doing any harm. They're not. They're in fact they're contributing more to. They're creating role models for the generations that are coming. You know, that would be one of them. Is that to really try to connect our Catholic religion on what is happening in today's world. I think he would be educating others, our friends, our people, especially if we really are fighting for a cause or if we're trying to get a point across that, like for example, marriage equality or for example, healthcare for transgender people. You know, it's really how do we get them to be on our side, you know, versus them against us, you
Right.
know.
The Filipinos were very, at least in my understanding, still very conservative. How
Mhm.
has that changed in terms of acceptance of the LGBTQIA plus community?
You'd be surprised when I would be invited to host, like in the local pistahan celebrations here, you know, they get it. They get it. This is a person who is a transgender person. I don't expect them to fully understand who I am and what I present on stage, but I will control what I have control over, is to educate them. And I'm holding the microphone, you know, so
Right,
I
you
can
have the
tell them,
power.
yeah, I can tell a story and I can tell them how I would like to be, how what pronouns I'd like to use for myself and all those things. Off the stage, you know, if we start looking at things, our youth are really very smart right now. API Filipino youths are very smart right now. To them, when they encounter a transgender person or a gay person, you know, it's not like how our parents would react before we're, oh no, you know, something like that. Now they're kind of like they're just curious and they just want to learn more.
Is there a script that you can, share with maybe some of our younger viewers on how to
Mhm.
talk to the older generation of Filipinos?
If I had a magic wand and I could just swish it over and everything and all this stuff, is really to have, for everyone to have the ability to unlearn what we've learned, you know, in terms of compassion, in terms of understanding and acceptance, you know. I brought up the word cultural humility. It's a concept where, for example, for myself, Tita Aida, when I'm working with folks or when I'm dealing with somebody who is not of my um, ethnicity or of my same descent, is that I put myself out of the door and I look at the person in front of me and I put myself in their position and I would see what is this person needs in order to succeed, you know, and putting their needs first versus mine, you know, because the minute you talk to folks around us, whoever they are, we already are we were taught to think about
Right, right. You
how they are,
already
who
have
they
out.
are.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that's the thing that kind of like stops us from becoming more of a higher being, you know, in terms of understanding what they really are, what they're really going through. It's sad because it was Pride Month. You know, we just wrapped up Pride Month, and you know, the most targeted in terms of like in the African American communities are trans women. You know, trans women of color, Black trans women. We lost 6 of trans women in the past month alone, and most of them is through violence, and they were put to
Right.
death because people didn't understand
Mhm.
who they were and why they were living their authentic selves. So it's so important to make sure that we keep an open mind, we keep ourselves aware of the situation. And again, we also have to realize we have power within ourselves to really kind of like paint the mural that we want to see out there, being open-minded about things and making sure that we use our power in terms of like how to become more of the part of the solution than more of the problem.
If you're just joining us, thank you so much for making time for us. I know that you have many choices of what to do with your time right now, and you're choosing to spend it with us here on So Jannelle, and for that, I'm very grateful. And because of your following and your loyalty and your collaboration with us here on So Jannelle, we owe it to you. We are now celebrating our 3rd anniversary this month with a virtual event that we have scheduled for July 25. Information on the screen. Please join us there. Would love for you to be there to join us. So it's 3-part journey: so awoke, so aware, and so alive. Please register www.sojannelle.com. Please register. This will be a Facebook event. And of course, don't forget our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/sojannelle, where we have our premieres on Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, and 11 a.m. Thursday morning in the Philippines. And we do appreciate and ask you to please share this with your friends and family, those who don't have TFC, those who can't watch us in Southern California. We are available online. Please catch us on social media. We are online on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram as well. Information on the screen. And of course, our weekly TV dates here on the show. Next week, same time, same channel. I'm your host, Jannelle So, and this has been So Jannelle.